Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Market Down podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, joined today by James Gisante, Chad Big Bad Johnson, and Danny Hernandez. Got a lot to get to today, so we'll dive right into it, starting with some post-Royal Rumble fallout. A lot has been surfacing about the booking of the Royal Rumble, more specifically on the men's side of things. With Shane McMahon's surprise return, it has come out that he was the lead booker on the Royal Rumble match itself. Apparently, Triple H was usually the lead booker, but with his health issues, he was unable to attend. So Shane ended up taking lead, and that led to the inevitable disaster that we all saw on Saturday, or in my case, Sunday. So there was a lot to go on with this. James, I'll start with you here. What do you think about all of the things surrounding Shane McMahon, from everything from him booking this Royal Rumble to some of the plans he had in the future and all the backstage drama that went with it?
It definitely sounds like Shane is being used as a fall guy a little bit to just justify all the hatred that went into this Rumble, or that is associated with this Rumble. From what we heard, Shane had his priorities were himself and his spots and what this would mean for him. And he got shot down on a lot of those things, and he wasn't happy about that. Shane used to have a reputation as somebody that the boys respected and that he earned his spot despite his place in life and despite who his dad is, that he did his best to earn being on screen with everybody. And the last few years, that definitely feels like that's something he's either forgotten or he feels isn't as important anymore. We've seen that in past feuds with like The Miz or Braun Strowman. And with all the rumors about what was coming, which was possibly being in the Elimination Chamber title match or having a WrestleMania match with Seth Rollins, none of that's great. None of that feels necessary, and it all kind of feels like a big, massive ego stroke. Given that Shane has no real stake in the company anymore, and his only real position is as a performer, maybe he felt it was important for him, but Shane has no financial backing with the company anymore. So maybe this was just his attempt at trying to make himself feel more important with the company, but it did not work. It pissed off a lot of people, and it cost him a lot.
Yeah, there were a lot of rumors running around about what happened and what was going to happen. Apparently, he was supposed to be a heel on Raw for an extended period of time. Like you said, he was supposed to perhaps be in the Rumble, maybe get a WrestleMania match with Seth Rollins. Austin Theory was also rumored, possibly even a title match with Bobby Lashley. There was a lot going on there. And Chad, he was so concerned with himself that I think anything he tried doing outside of him then ended up probably not being great, and he kept getting overridden. Yeah, that's the right reaction.
Shane Brandon McMahon, let me talk to you. Do you think in your feeble ass mind that you, Shane Brandon McMahon, not only should be the 29th entrant in a Royal Rumble, but should go on to fight Seth Rollins at WrestleMania? What, or even be in the chamber or in the title picture whatsoever? Does that make sense to anyone on this podcast besides myself? I didn't think so. With that being said, the booking was terrible, so I'm glad he's gone. Whoever booked this should be gone. That's an immediate termination. The Rumble was trash. His spot in the Rumble was trash. His time in the Rumble was trash. That's all. Back to you, Rev.
I think Maple O'Neal just made an appearance there for a second. But I mean, yeah, I have to agree. His spot in the Rumble was not good. The fact that he was outstriking, former UFC fighter Matt Riddle is ridiculous. Like, it was just bad. And yeah, he has no business being in the title picture. I think if he had returned earlier in the Rumble, like 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there, and came out, that would have been kind of fun as a surprise. But where he came in was ridiculous. The fact that he was treated as somebody who could feasibly win the Rumble was ridiculous. And then Danny, anything that he even had thought he could possibly do in the future was ridiculous.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous. So the Rumble was on Saturday, and that was the day after Pokemon Legends of Arceus came out. And oh man, all I wanted to do was like play that game all day. I really had to force myself to not play it throughout the whole Rumble because I didn't want to not fully pay attention to the game. The Rumble, I care less not fully paying attention to. So like, I really felt a little jaded that I had to sit through that. I don't mind Shane being in the Rumble. I do mind Shane being in the Final Four. I mean, I also mind Bad Bunny being in the Final Four, but it was kind of cool in a way too. So, I'm back and forth on that. But like, yeah, like you guys already said, getting the better of Riddle and a strike and exchange is ridiculous. Everything about it was kind of bad. Like, if this Rumble's better, I don't think we get mad at him being in it, honestly. Like, I really don't. It's all the other stuff, everything else around it that is so bad and damning of Shane. And I don't remember if this was reported or just like a fan comment, but Shane's like clearly going through a midlife crisis these past few years, and he's really trying to present himself as someone who is still young and cool and relevant. Where not that you have to be young to like be super into sneakers, but he's always like, hey, look at my cool sneakers that I got on, and hey, look, I can still jump off the big things and do the crazy spots. And like, what was it, 2 years ago maybe, that he was supposedly gonna have a match with Brock Lesnar, but Brock was like, no, not doing that, that's a waste of my time. So he has a history of viewing himself as that big of a draw or that big of a star. And I think at first he was not that I think he was justified, but I think he felt justified because he did boost WrestleMania ticket sales when he first came back for that match with The Undertaker. And he does get pretty loud reactions, or he did. And I mean, still kind of does, like, we're complaining about this, but that crowd fucking popped for him. They popped when they eliminated Owens. They booed a little bit because they were upset Owens was gone, but they didn't like boo Shane the whole time or even the whole time after that. So he's kind of bought into his own hype and deluded himself into thinking he is this big deal and this big star. And it's not like, Vince is bad at now, but Vince used to be great. And one of the things that made Vince great was he was never trying to make himself the star. He was never trying to make himself look better. It was all about making Austin look better. It was always, how do we make Austin look good? How am I a foil to Austin? But how does Austin always, like any other weekly episodic show, it's like, how do I antagonize this person for him to ultimately give me my comeuppance? Whereas Shane hasn't had that. Stephanie never had that. That was the problem with Stephanie for all of last decade, was that she never got her comeuppance. And whenever it did, it was an accidental table bump or an accidental whatever move, or the one time the mixed tag with Ronda Rousey. But like Shane is lacking that too. Like, and the difference is we all miss Shane because Shane just disappeared and he was completely gone. And like I said, he separated himself completely from the company. So when he came back, it felt refreshing. It was like, oh my God, like this is it. Shane's coming. There was a time where we thought Shane was going to take over the company after Vince, and we were happy about it. We were like, oh, thank God he seems to be level-headed. Like he seems to be more in touch with what the fans want. And we should have known from before this, but we really should have known from Raw Underground that he was not in a right mind creatively.
Yeah, that I don't need to be reminded of Raw Underground. But you're right. Like when he came back, and especially that SmackDown era with him and Daniel Bryan, like he was legit. It was so cool having him around the end. Like he ran the show so well. It was so much fun with him there. And now, yeah, I was gonna make that comment too. Like it feels like he's in a midlife crisis where he's just trying to book himself to be over instead of allowing himself to be the butt of the joke or, get his comeuppance like Vince used to. I was curious, though, if anybody lended any credence to the theory that perhaps it was Vince who was screwing everything up here, where Shane had ideas and Vince was constantly shutting them down. And I think, James, you did mention that Shane seems to be the fall guy here, but do you think this is on Shane, or do you think it's possibly true that it is on Vince and Shane's just taking the rap here?
I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I mean, we all know at the end of the day, nothing happens without Vince's say so. Something especially of this height and of this caliber. One of the things that did come out is Brock's involvement specifically was Brock's call. The way Brock was booked in the Rumble was Brock's call. That he wanted to look dominant. He wanted to look strong because he's got this match with Roman and he needed to look good after the loss. So I can't blame that on Shane, but that's also just something that sucked about the Rumble. I'm sure Shane, who is being credited as the guy who booked this match, some of his ideas were some of the ideas were his and it sucked and the Rumble sucked. I know Triple H has been credited as having booked some past Rumbles, and I also know that apparently Tyson Kidd, TJ Wilson, was also someone who is credited for a lot of good creative Rumble spots.
Especially the women's ones.
Yeah, he does mostly women's matches.
And he has not booked any matches for WWE in, I believe, several weeks. There's no reason why that's been confirmed, but he has been absent from the booking team or from producing matches. So I think there are multiple reasons why this Rumble fell apart. Shane is one of them, but I think in the grand scheme, given the terrible reaction to this Rumble, they've just decided to put it all on Shane, because guess what? It doesn't fucking matter if Shane does something wrong. I think we talked about it privately in our chat. In a few months, Shane's just going to come back anyway. Or in a year, Shane's just going to come back anyway. Because guess what? His last name is fucking McMahon. Like, he will be back in some capacity. Fans are not going to care. Just the same way every time Vince McMahon walks out, people cheer him. People are still going to pop for Shane. So let Shane be the fall guy, because it's not like his life is ruined because of it.
So I kind of... Okay, well, first off, the whole Brock thing, because I heard that report too, and just in general that they want to make sure Brock looks strong going into his match with Roman Reigns, which is pretty weird considering you didn't have to beat him on the show, and you also didn't, like, bro, he's going into a match we all know he's going to lose, and he's already lost 2 matches in the past 3, like, whatever, that's silly as it is, but I don't know, part of me finds it hard to believe that Vince would throw his son onto the bus like that. Like, if anything, he would have thrown on someone like Jamie Noble or like someone else. Like, they normally, they have people, they have their fall guys,
They've definitely used Noble before in a previous Rumble.
Yeah, so I don't know. It seems a little weird. I find it easier to believe that it really is just because of all the backstage heat and shit going on reportedly with Shane, that they were just like, you know what, you need some time. It was more like you said, I do believe he'll be back, but it's more like forced time away. Like, you need some time away, and this is just how they're doing it. Like, get out, like, because reportedly backstage morale was really bad after the Rumble and going into the Rumble, both Rumbles too. As much as for the most part, we like the Women's Rumble. Even then, like morale was not high going into that Rumble.
Reportedly, none of the women were like. There were many women who turned down spots in the Rumble or involvement in the Rumble because Tyson Kidd was not involved with the booking for the Rumble. At least that's what a report said.
I believe that. Becky on the Stone Cold's podcast, she said, she was like, "Oh, like Tyson Kidd has been a part of all your favorite moments in the women's division in the last 6 years. Like any of your favorite matches or moments, he's been involved in one way, shape, or form." So yeah, I could imagine. Like I think the way Finlay used to be that person for the women, like before, like I think that Kidd is that person, which it's funny because his wife's like one of the worst.
Go ahead, Chad. I'm sorry.
Do not do that, Daniel.
Not do what?
Don't make fun of the Guinness.
Natty.
Yeah, don't make fun of the Guinness record holder.
3-time Guinness holder.
I was gonna say I wasn't sure how many she was up to. Finlay, though, I believe was brought back for this Women's Rumble. I know to get slightly off topic there. So yeah, I think James, what you were saying about Brock it being his choice, what would happen there? I now wonder if Riddle was actually supposed to win that. There's some rumors said, and then it kind of all blew up.
So the reports, there was some premature reporting on that, and what the initial story was that Riddle was penciled in for weeks, and then pretty like right before the Rumble, that changed. As the story continued, it became that no, maybe at one point Riddle was pitched to win, but Brock was the projected winner or the penciled in winner for a little while. So I think the Riddle story was probably just somebody hearing about that pitch and then going off with that story. And I think Brock was the lock for a while.
Yeah, I 100% don't believe that story at all. Like, I think Brock's been the pick since he lost Roman in Saudi Arabia. It's very clear that this was always the bad, but ultimately always the plan. But yeah, I don't believe that Riddle won. And they also mentioned like, oh, maybe Orton can win it. And that's just clearly them, going based off of, the story that Riddle could win and saying, oh, maybe it could be Orton. And, but I really don't believe any of that.
I'm with you. I think when they got wind that we kind of wanted Riddle to win, or it would be refreshing for Riddle to win, I think that was a fabrication just to give us hope. I'll also state that whoever actually booked the Men's Royal Rumble, I wish you 1,000 paper cuts in the same spot.
Oh, man.
All I can say is whoever was penciled in, they definitely go through a lot of pencils at WWE because they run through plans like crazy. But let's move along now to another WWE story, kind of, where WWE earlier, I guess this week when you guys will be watching this, earlier this week, they released the Brian Kendrick from his role as a wrestling instructor and trainer within WWE. He then almost immediately signed a deal with AEW to perform, not a full deal, but a deal to have a match against Jon Moxley on the February 2nd episode of Dynamite. Shortly thereafter, videos resurfaced of him making anti-Semitic comments and just going crazy with conspiracy theories. I believe one of the videos showed him denying the Holocaust. Just very, very bad stuff. Tony Khan quickly came out on Twitter and said that Kendrick would no longer be on the episode and that they would continue to gather more information on everything. Kendrick then recently, before this taping, he apologized on Twitter. So if you want to read his apology, it was brief. You can go to his Twitter account there. But Danny, this is obviously a very bad look for Kendrick, but I think AEW handled this in a very smart and timely manner.
Yeah, they did. They pretty much jumped on it right away and didn't give this any time to simmer or get worse. So Kendrick had a lot of interesting beliefs there, and I will say that watching the video of him from 2011, it felt more like he was in a cult than he was like genuinely a monster. It seemed more like he was brainwashed than he was like in his right mind, because that's how these kind of videos always kind of come off. But yeah, at the end of the day, and that's in regard to, because he does believe in the reptilian conspiracy theory, which sounds hilarious, and it almost is, but it's really not, because there's a lot of cynical undertones to it. But he believes that a lot of the richest families in the world, mostly Jewish, are reptiles and are controlling the rich and government officials to gain power. People like the Rothschild family, the Rockefellers, the Clintons, George Bush, for some reason. He doesn't really fit the bill I think they go for in the conspiracy, but he was president at the time this theory was gaining a lot of popularity, so lump him in. And they co-opt other conspiracies too, like the Illuminati, the Freemasons, 9/11 conspiracies. They downplayed the Sandy. He was one of the people that downplayed Sandy Hook and just school shootings, mass shootings in general. And he didn't deny the Holocaust; he downplayed it, which I think is worse, but not equally bad, but worse in a different kind of way, because he's like, "Yeah, this happened, but like it wasn't that bad, guys. Come on, like." What's genocide and mass murder? Come on, guys, was it really that bad? But it's good that he knows what he does wrong, and I don't know. I didn't see his apology, so I don't know how genuine it comes off as, or whether he really means it or not. But AEW was completely right to, especially it's just Brian Kendrick, like. It's not a hill worth dying on for anyone. Like, it's just, yep, drop it, move on. He wasn't going to make a big splash in AEW. He was going to be a one note in the Moxley Bryan story. And then he probably, if he did sign full-time to the company, he would just wrestle on dark from here until the end of time. So it's not a loss for them. It seemed like more of a loss for WWE because he played a big part backstage. But I wonder how good of friends he was with that one referee in WWE.
Oh my God, Drake.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh man, him, that referee, and Bobby Fish probably start a faction. It's crazy. I don't know. Sorry, because I feel like I'm clearly the most sensitive person on this podcast. But conspiracies used to be fun, like the Loch Ness Monster, like aliens, Bigfoot, stuff like that. It's just so, conspiracies suck now. They used to be so fun, and now they suck.
Yeah. I have pulled up his apology. I'll read it here in full. And I quote, "I apologize for all the hurt and embarrassment I have caused with my words. These are not my beliefs and were never beliefs of mine, and I crossed the line," end quote.
Okay, so wait, like,
he doesn't
those
believe
were
that
never
himself.
beliefs of mine? Bro, you're on video. Like, are you kidding me?
Well, so let me just make it clear. I am not defending Kendrick in any way. But I do, just for argument's sake, the man put out over several years a lot of ridiculous videos, a lot of just him bullshitting, sometimes with Paul London, who I don't want to drag into this because by all accounts, I think London renounced Kendrick a long time ago, but he was known for putting out some ridiculous shit at one point or another. There is no defense of anything he said, joking or not, but regardless of all that, it could be a billion different things. It could be, Danny, like you said, maybe he was brainwashed at one point and they weren't really his beliefs and he was just like regurgitating. Still not okay, because you're an adult spewing terrible shit on a wide platform, but maybe. Or maybe this was just another video where he was doing his bullshit conspiracy thing, trying to get laughs and trying to be uncomfortable. Again, not okay, because you have a platform where children follow you. But maybe they weren't his beliefs, but it doesn't matter if they were or if they weren't in the first place. He said them, and he's not someone, especially when those comments were being made, he's not really someone who can afford to speak in that manner. At least not in my opinion.
I mean, none of that came off as a joke or doing a bit. Like, you know, he kind of, it just doesn't work, because isn't that video part of like a documentary, or at least a show about this conspiracy? So why would it be it wouldn't be a bit?
I'm not sure. Because
he was at David Icke's lecture, like.
Yeah, well,
he's just, that's like an 11-hour thing. That's a long bit.
I would like to reiterate that Kendrick definitely seems like he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I don't know. I don't know. Again, let me reiterate, I'm not defending him. I'm just trying to make sense of it in my head.
I will say the clip I saw on Reddit, which was on Twitter, from a user named David Bixpan, comes from something called Truth is Scary. I don't know what that is. I didn't look it up, but it certainly doesn't seem like a genuine outlet. So
I mean, it seems like one of those like secondary channels,
conspiracy
like
theories,
late night like show, like, you know, it's like whatever channel's version of like Ancient Aliens or something. It's like,
I mean, yeah, and that clip I referenced is from 2011. So James, I don't know when he was making all of those other clips, but if that fits your timeline,
his internet presence, the things that he said or would say, go years. You know, it's not like he's not a Simon Gotch guy where he just did it like right after getting released from WWE and that was it.
Yeah, and now you fucked up the YouTube algorithm for everybody.
You're welcome. But no, for years he would do like shoot videos or just bullshitting like funny videos, and it could be from any time period. Like, I know we're specifically talking about stuff from 2011, but his spiel, his shtick is long running.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this, I can see him saying just batshit crazy things, Chad, but obviously I believe he crossed the line here.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the freshest and newest to me. I was unaware. I think he's not amazing, but I think he's a good enough in-ring talent to now find out that he's like fucking Quasimodo bell ringing crazy. Like I kind of always knew he was weird and a little offish to me, but now it's just, I don't know. AEW did the correct thing. He's now Plexico Burrs. He shot himself. I mean, it is what it is. He did this to himself. No apology is going to make any sense to anybody. You're done, kid.
I'd also like to add, because I didn't really get to say it too, I also think AEW handled this beautifully. Like, when I was reading about it online, I saw so many people saying, yeah, they're probably still going to use him, but they just won't bring him back. Nope, they just nipped it in the bud, and I think they handled it more professionally than I think we would have expected from almost anybody else.
So I'd like to add to that, because I saw it on Instagram. They posted, you know, the match card for tonight, and it had Yuta versus Mox on it, and there were people commenting like, "Oh, no Kendrick, what?" But then there were people were like, "Oh, I was gonna watch for Kendrick, so like, what the fuck? Now he's not on. Now I'm not gonna watch." And I like to say to those people, "You're lying. You're 100% lying. There's not a person in this world that's like, Brian Kendrick's on the show. I'll start watching it now."
Unless you
Bro.
are a 205 Live stan,
Even
there's
then.
no way.
Yeah,
like,
even then, I
Complete
was
sarcasm.
I was excited to see him, but
So I know Brian Kendrick from when he was Spanky in Ring of Honor.
Oh my God.
Like Brian Kendrick has been in the wrestling, like in the wrestling like mindscape for decades. You know, like Bryan Danielson will tell you he was good friends with Brian Kendrick. Like they had each other's first match ever together. They were both students at Shawn Michaels wrestling school. Spanky was a mainstay in Ring of Honor. If things had played out differently, he could have been a much bigger deal in the wrestling world. He has his fans. Granted, in the last 10 years or so, his biggest contribution on TV is the cruiserweight division. But once upon a time, he was a big deal. I am inclined to agree with Danny. I don't think the Spanky fans of the world were necessarily like coming out in bunches for this, but it does need to be acknowledged that this isn't some jabroni, you know, this isn't some Drake Wirtz, this isn't some nobody. He was a big deal once upon a time, and he repeatedly shot himself in the foot professionally, and I think this is quite possibly the final nail in that coffin.
That's all well and good, and I think you put it well. And this is definitely the last nail in the coffin, but even then, no one is that big of a fan where they're like, I'm going to start watching this show that has all these other guys from that time period of Ring of Honor and, you know, better guys from that time period. But now I'm going to start watching, because what have you been doing this whole time? Like, let's say, like, been watching 205 Live? Probably not. Have you been watching, like, you've got to be the most snobbish and hipster fans if this was the reason you were going to watch Dynamite. But, you know, I mean, I have nothing against Brian Kendrick as much as it seems like I do.
What do you
The
mean,
people
Danny?
who said that, I'm like, you're lying.
It's the Brian Kendrick. Are you crazy?
He was the #1 contender for like a week or something, right, on SmackDown?
He was
in a #1 contenders match. He was not number one.
He was a temporary WWE champion during the championship scramble.
Oh my God.
He technically held the WWE title for a few minutes during a match, but he is not recognized as WWE champion.
You want to know why, James? Because he also trained Eva Marie. That's why.
That in itself is enough reason. That
unforgivable.
That is the 14th reason of his career.
Well, we'll always have that burning hammer he hit in the Cruiserweight Classic, right? But I want to just close things out here with Tony Khan's tweet, since I mentioned it before and you guys were mentioning how well AEW handled things. We've been made aware of abhorrent and offensive comments made in the past by Brian Kendrick. There's no room in AEW for the views expressed by Brian. We think it's best for all that Brian be pulled from tonight's card as we gather more info. And then he goes on to say that they will get a replacement who, as we all know now, was a pretty game Wheeler Yuta. So I think we've all said our piece on that. So let's move on from one WWE release to another one. Nia Jax recently was on Oral Sessions with Renee Paquette. And
just the Sessions. It's no longer Oral Sessions.
Oh, boo. That's such a good name.
I agree.
I digress. Nia covered a litany of topics, including why she was released and the Royal Rumble. Starting with the first one, despite her initial claims that she was not released due to her unwillingness to get the COVID vaccine, she said on Sessions that it was indeed due to that, because a conversation she had allegedly with Vince McMahon, where he said that she would not be able to perform contractual duties without said vaccine. She continued to refuse to get it and was thereby released. So we will start there and then move on to some to her other comments in a minute. But Chad, I'll start with you. What do you make of her now claiming she was released due to not getting the vaccine? And do you think now that she's changing her story, there's any credibility to what she's saying?
Okay, I'm going to break it down this way. There's this great long-lasting show on NBC by the name of Law and Order Special Victims Unit,
Dun, dun.
starring Mariska Hargitay. And I'll be damned if it doesn't need to star Nia Jax. This woman is a liar, and she makes herself a victim at every single turn. I can't believe anything she says. I don't know what story's going around, when, or however it is. All that I know, the common denominator for me is usually just she's lying and she's a victim. I don't know anything else with Nia Jax. I can't.
Well, to add on to that alleged victim complex, she also says she hasn't received most, if not all, of her things back from WWE from when she was released. So she even, according to her, didn't even get the Mickey bag, trash bag treatment, Danny. She just hasn't gotten her shit back.
We should feel bad for her.
I mean, you know, who doesn't feel bad for Nia Jax? I mean, if she hasn't gotten her stuff back, that's pretty bad on the $1 million company's part. But you know, I'm gonna tread lightly. I'm not defending Nia Jax, but I think she's not saying, I think when she originally denied getting fired because she didn't want to get the vaccine, I think that was more of her not wanting to admit that she was anti-vax. That felt more like protecting herself from the internet than, you know, saying that that's not the reason. I think it was more of she's not ready to admit that. And, you know, I don't remember the exact timeline, but, you know, I know there was like a story a couple months ago where Sasha was like, you know, liking some questionable posts regarding, you know, the virus and the vaccines and stuff. But, you know, Sasha's fans are the worst. So, you know, you can't really attack her for things. Otherwise, you probably get doxxed. So maybe Nia was trying to avoid a situation like that, or maybe she was just lying, you know. Either way, I found the idea of this interview fascinating because as bad as Nia is, as polarizing and controversial as a wrestler / person that she is, I think that's kind of what made this podcast appealing was, you know, I don't think she intends to be a bad person, but it just always comes off that way. And, you know, I thought this podcast would be a chance to, you know, own up to a lot of things and then just spill some interesting gossip, you know. And I think this failed on all those levels because she didn't really hold herself accountable, and she tried to, you know, she kind of tried to get the, you know, fuck WWE sympathy that other wrestlers get, but it felt more artificial because ultimately, until the end, she didn't really have a hard time there. You know, it's funny because I watched, you know, I mentioned earlier, I watched Becky Lynch on the Stone Cold podcast, and, you know, Nia, I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but, you know, Nia was talking about the people she's injured and kind of downplayed that. But she did talk about the Becky situation and how Vince wasn't that mad about it and just said this isn't ballet, blah, blah, blah. On Stone Cold podcast, you know, Becky was like, like, you know, like it happens. And, you know, Nia sent me a bunch of flowers and was, you know, very apologetic about it, which she didn't really say from what I've heard on the oral session. She didn't really talk about how she was like apologized for that. She talked about apologizing for another person she hurt. But anyway, you know, Becky, yeah, and then Becky made a joke about it. She's like, you know, I should have sent her flowers because, you know, that sent me to the main event of WrestleMania. And, you know, like it's, you know, kind of nice to hear that, you know, they can joke about these kind of things too. And like, that's how they can view the situation. But yeah, to me, this was like a big missed opportunity for Nia to really like win over us as critics of her and detractors, because you know, we are very harsh on Nia. Not that she doesn't deserve it for the most part, but like she's like the one person that no one has a problem with bashing, you know, and that's it's kind of sad, but also kind of funny. So this was her chance to really like to own up to it, or even just roll with it, and just take a little bit of accountability. And she really tried to do oh no, see, I'm not really at a fault here. I didn't really injure this person. I didn't really do that. So overall, it was a very disappointing interview.
Yeah, I don't think any of us think Nia is necessarily a quote unquote bad person, but she definitely has the public perception that she doesn't have the public perception that she wants to, because of things like going back on what she said earlier with the COVID vaccine, or like you said, her downplaying the injuries. I believe what she said was that she had only injured 2 people. One of them was Becky, and then she failed to mention the other one, despite the laundry list of people we pretty much know to her have injured. So it's things like that, James, where she just kind of loses her credibility, and then she's unable to gain back any sympathy to herself, despite the fact that, if she did, she'd probably be in a much better space publicly.
I want to go as far as to say that Nia is her own worst enemy, but she has definitely done and said a lot to make it hard to have allies. I remember when she was laughing at injuring Kairi Sane on Twitter. I remember her talking shit about a lot of the other women on the roster. And that's fine. Everybody talks shit. Like, that's not a Nia Jax exclusive. But when you pair up so many of these negative qualities and you pair up so many of these negative feelings, it becomes hard to see the positive. It becomes hard to see the light. And Nia relished in that, or at least that's how she presented it publicly. As someone who was an early Nia supporter and soured on her over time, it sucks. I wanted so much more for her. I wanted so much better for her. But at the end of the day, Nia's decisions are her own, and she has to lie in the bed that she made. And you know what? She got released. She's now saying because she didn't get vaccinated, and she felt that was the right thing to do, like to stick to her gut, as she put it. But okay, if that's the decision you make, that's what you guys just heard my dog snoring. That's, or she was calling bullshit on everything Nia said. Who knows? But
dogs can smell bullshit.
And this one is one of the best. But she definitely did this to herself. I agree with Danny. We shouldn't, just because it's Nia, we shouldn't be like, hey, it's funny you didn't get your shit from WWE. No, it's just as big a deal as when Mickie James was treated poorly by the company. But on almost every other front, sorry, Nia, you didn't gain any sympathy from me. Nothing you're doing, nothing you've said changes the fact that you were an unsafe worker who, quite frankly, let go of themselves while they were a wrestler. And no, this isn't a body shaming thing, but she got really out of ring shape, and that made her performances worse, and it put more people in danger, and was just ready to go. She got into a fight with Charlotte. She got into a fight on TV. When was the last time we saw people like really going at it? Like maybe Brock and Braun, but that was 2 people like hitting each other once, then a receipt, and that was it. These were 2 people who just did not give a shit where they were, and were just, I'm gonna be the baddest bitch. I'm sorry.
And even that story on the podcast was boring.
Yeah.
It was literally just like, it's like, yeah, we had some miscues and some miscommunications, and then neither of us handled it well. And then I asked her backstage, are we good? And she said, yeah, something just didn't feel right out there. And I'm like, What a boring story. I can't wait for Tony Storm to be on a fucking podcast, like, and really get that Charlotte hate going. But
I want her to be eating like a whipped cream pie, as she's doing it. But from Rev, you're looking at me like I'm fucking crazy when that was like Tony's most memorable thing on the roster.
No, I wasn't looking at you like you were crazy. It was just an eyebrow. All right.
But yeah, Nia, I wish her well in life, but stay the fuck away from any ring.
I think she is. I think she also said that she's probably done wrestling. So
she should be.
I also do think that it's bullshit that she was invited back to the Royal Rumble. I actually just don't believe it.
I was about to ask because Danny said she probably wasn't going to come back to the ring. Does anybody believe her claim that she was invited back and then therefore declined? James, obviously, no.
I think there is a partial truth to that story. I am sure whoever she spoke to from WWE mentioned, would you be interested? And to put her name on a list of possible people to present to Vince to bring back. But I don't think there was ever any genuine, we're bringing Nia Jax back. The only reason it didn't happen is because she said no. I don't think so.
I believe it.
You do?
They were desperate. So
Rumble
was desperate.
I think James's story seems fairly plausible. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. Like just a phone call and then but never actually like, hey, we want you in this. More of a, hey, would you be interested in this? That makes a lot of sense to me. But then again,
Lana, so why wouldn't they call Nia?
Because Lana didn't really leave on bad terms. Lana was just a budget cut. Nia was one, like she's still not vaccinated, so why would they bring her back all of a sudden? And two, it's not like on the way out she wasn't still causing drama literally on TV. Lana was just, all right, we don't want you anymore. You're gone. I think it is kind of different.
A small part of me, though, thinks that Vince likes that. Like, I think he likes the controversy that is Nia Jax. So I can believe that she was invited back. I'm glad she didn't come back, whether she was asked or not. We were fine with Kelly.
I was not fine. If I had to pick, I'd rather have Nia Jax than Kelly. So
God damn.
That was sarcasm, Daniel.
Fuck that.
That was not sarcasm. I don't think Kelly belongs in a wrestling ring, whether she's vaxxed or not.
I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I feel like
go for it. We got time.
We don't do that here.
Divas champion Kelly, by the end of her time with WWE, was putting on serviceable matches where they.
I think you are an apologist for almost everybody, and you need to do some self-reflection.
Well, hold on. I will say, because I watched Heavy around that time.
10-9 round Danny.
If they did not put Kelly in the ring with Beth Phoenix as much, she would have looked better. But I don't think she was any worse than, say, I guess a Brie Bella or Nikki Bella. It was the same.
I'll take it. I thought he was going to say a name that was going to make me feel bad, so I'll take it. Like, I'll take a Bella twin.
At that time, yeah. Because the Bella twins improved a lot.
Right. I mean, Kelly was okay. She was at least athletic.
Improved.
Yeah. Well,
I genuinely think she improved from day one to like the last day. She got better. Is that good? No, I wouldn't put her in the ring with anybody of today, but I do think she did improve over time.
Was it her that completely face planted her elimination?
Yeah.
That was.
I don't know actually.
Yes.
Was her?
I think she ate that fucking thing.
Yes.
Holy shit! That was a fucking rough one.
It was a good sell.
Oh yeah, I think it sticks out to me, one, because it was funny, and two, I was like, holy shit, she did that.
She's athletic. I mean,
yeah, no, she's not somebody I would expect.
Not good, yeah,
but she wasn't.
I think
not
that
somebody
happened by
expected to do
accident.
that.
I don't think that was a creative choice of hers.
Man,
I think she got better from not wrestling for 8-10 years, whatever it's been.
You've seen worse, Danny. Literally
one part. Like Oksana and Cameron are the only worst people. That's it.
And one of those was in the Rumble.
Have you ever seen Eva Marie?
Better than Kelly.
Bullshit.
Better than Kelly.
No.
He's lying, Your Honor.
No.
Kick him off.
No.
You're lying.
I don't think I could legitimately tell you a move that Eva Marie has hit in the ring.
Sliced bread.
Kendrick!
By Brian Kendrick.
Kendrick!
And at least Eva Marie had something to her. She got genuine heat, at least.
Well, Kelly is attractive.
And Eva Marie's not.
Yeah, but he said at least, as if Kelly had nothing.
Cool. So do you have? See, still, Eva Marie has one up still because
she's not a better wrestler, so she doesn't have one up.
We shouldn't be talking. You shouldn't say better wrestler when we're talking about either of these people.
I got someone worse than Kelly, and no, I'm not going to do it. I feel bad.
No, do it.
Candice Michelle.
Who? I know exactly who you're talking about.
I don't know about that. I also don't remember very much like Candice Michelle matches. Like,
there's probably a reason why.
Also, honestly, in that whole Kelly era, there were a lot of come and goes that were not anywhere near as good as Kelly. Again, we shouldn't be having this conversation because Kelly is not good, but they are, like you said, Oksana, they are much worse. But we'll leave it at
much worse.
Okay, not much worse, but
we're currently arguing the Jets, Jaguars, and Giants right now. Like, that's what it is. It's like, okay, who's gonna get the number 1 overall pick because they're the worst team?
Yo, I forgot about Candice Michelle. Embarrassing.
Honestly, I wanted to try to circle back to Nia but I'm not even sure I can, but I'm just going to go for it. I just genuinely am not sure if anything she said is true because she just seems so unreliable, especially, she says she didn't get fired because she was unvaccinated. Now she's saying she is. And even doing that, and the injury thing is just the most laughable thing she fucking has ever said.
Yeah.
Between those two things, like, how am I supposed to believe you actually got invited to the Rumble? Or even if they asked if you were interested, how am I supposed to believe that you haven't gotten your shit back from WWE? Like,
her saying that she only injured 2 people literally was her shitting on every fan that watches WWE and has watched WWE since she came.
Her rationale was that, she's so much bigger than everyone else, and she worked the first year of her career on the main roster with Alexa Bliss, and Bliss was fine, but I think Bliss got a few stingers in that rivalry,
and that's
and that's not something you can necessarily hold against Nia. Like, that's gonna happen. How Seth Rollins has injured a lot of people on the WWE roster. Technically, he ended Sting's career until AEW came around, and he
Finn
broke the shit out of John Cena's nose.
And he broke the shit out of Finn Balor's career.
Yeah. Yeah. So, by Nia's logic, she's injured less people than Seth Rollins. But, it's like those things happen, and no one, for the most part, people don't hold it against Seth besides Bret Hart. Like, Bret Hart holds it against Seth.
No, he hates Seth.
That's so funny. But, and it's okay. It's not okay to injure people, but it's gonna happen, and you just handle it. And from like I said with the Becky stuff, it seemed like it was handled well. She sent flowers. She profusely apologized. She went to Vince, and that should be that. And I understand, of course you're gonna defend yourself when everyone's attacking you, and ultimately we are on the outside and she is on the inside, and we're always gonna have different perspectives. But the evidence is there, and even then, you can I would take Charlotte's name off the list. Charlotte didn't miss any time; it was just a bad spot. I don't think she was any more injured than just taking normal bumps. It makes you the Bailey one.
Oh, I forgot about Bailey.
But it is the Becky one. It's the Kyrie one. The Kyrie ones, isn't it multiple with Kyrie?
I believe it's twice.
Yeah.
with Kyrie, if I'm
Sounds
not
right.
mistaken.
But like some of these are like just incidental. They're gonna happen. Others are like really bad. Like I mentioned when we were talking about Oksana, like I forgot who it was against, but
Naomi.
there we go. Yeah, there was a match where like she forgot her spot and she literally just bent down and kneed Naomi
her
in the eye, like genuinely kneed her in the eye, and like it didn't even play into the next spot in the match. It was just a clear, not even a miscommunication, because it was just very clear that she forgot what she was doing. And like that's bad. That's not excusable. That's not injuries happen. Like this isn't ballet moment. That's you are not ready for this or you're not prepared for this. And now someone else has suffered because of it. And Nia's had both of those moments. Nia's had both. She's been on both sides of it where it's just incidental. It happens, but she just happened to be the person to do it. And there's others where it's like, well, because of your abilities, this is why this happened.
Yeah, it's the difference of injuring people while being a safe worker and it happening, like you said, incidentally, or being an unsafe worker or an unskilled worker and injuring people that way. And obviously, the latter is a far worse thing, and it's what we mostly associate with Nia. All right, so I think that about wraps things up for us here this week. I hope everybody enjoys the Superb Owl this weekend. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast here on YouTube, and check us out on the socials. All the links will be in the description below. So my name is Nick Cummings, and for Chad Big Bad Johnson, James Gisante, and Danny Hernandez, have a good one, everybody, and we'll see you next time here on the Market Down Podcast.